Hey friends, Liz here to invite you to check out our Patreon. That's where we publish extra episodes every other week, and that's also where we will continue any series we're reading. So if you liked our coverage of ACOTAR, Guild, High Mountain Court, or Fourth Wing, check out our Patreon to continue those series along with us. We also let you know what we're reading each month in advance in case you want to read along with us too. There might be a few other surprises throughout the year for our patrons as well. You can get all of this for just $3 a month, so check it out and we would really appreciate the support. Anyway, on to today's episode. Okay, so first I already messed up. This book has two authors, does it not? No? I think so. The cover says C.N. Crawford and Alex Rivers.
You're right. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. Uh-huh.
Yep. I was like, did I make that up? Also, the way your body froze, I thought the camera froze. And then I was like, oh no, she's just buffering. Got it.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah, Alex Rivers. I'm sorry. I have totally dropped her off the thing. Yeah.
It's
here
fine.
we are.
Alex doesn't know.
Welcome to Your Safe Space, the podcast your partner, friends, parents, whoever thinks is dirty. Don't have time to read books? Want to understand the jokes and the TikToks? We got you, fam. We're the Spice Traders, and we deal in spicy books. I'm Katie, and I need it to make sense.
I'm Liz, and I'm hypercritical. As always, we start every episode with three things. The first is a generic trigger warning. You can find specific triggers for this book in our show notes, so please check those out. Also, we do use foul language and talk a lot about sex. If you have sensitivity to any of this, please give this episode a skip.
Secondly, we talk about books. The whole book, nothing but the book, so help me goddess. If you plan to read this book and don't want something spoiled right now, don't listen to this episode.
Lastly, we acknowledge that a good book can hit you at the wrong time. The views expressed in our discussion are our opinion, and we absolutely don't want to diminish the work and the talent of the authors in our community. That said, we have some notes.
So Liz, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about Avalon Tower by C.N. Crawford and Alex Rivers. This is a new book published in 2024, and it is the first in a series, The Fae Spy Academy, currently with 2 books and a third on the way. This book is 454 pages long, and that's a longie for us. I'm glad to know there's a third on the way.
I know what you're thinking. The Fae Spy Academy sounds camp as fuck. And
yeah,
you're not wrong.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
But it's not in a bad way.
No. And I think it might be a little bit of a miss that that's the name of the series, but that's fine. But I had the same. It's campy in a great way.
Yeah, it's definitely campy in a good way. And I mean, it could have been a little less on the nose, like the Camelot Spies or something like that. But I mean, It does what it says in the title. It's the Fae Spy Academy.
That's what it says. And the cover says it very clearly too. Like, we get the cover, there's a tower, like a turret, with a crescent moon behind it, with some thorns and roses. And then above the title, it literally says Fae Academy for Spies.
Yeah. So a little on the nose.
It's like, I mean, and we talked about this in the debrief, but I expected this book to be a lot of fun and not a lot of substance. But it's good. It's really good. I'm going to say that now.
Yeah, there's a lot more substance than I was expecting.
Yeah. Also, apparently, I'm looking at this on Amazon as I do when I talk about the covers. It's the #1 bestseller in Arthurian fantasy.
I mean, how big is that category really?
Okay, that's what I'm saying. And how much of Arthurian fantasy has fairies in it?
Yeah. Also a great question.
Just curious. But it's, I mean, that's what it is. I don't have much to say about the cover.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty...
it's very inoffensive. Like it's well constructed. It has good composition. It's got good like colors. It doesn't have a person on the cover, which I love.
I do love that there's no person. There's also like bubbles, like water which I'm not really sure why.
Oh, you'll find out
Okay.
later.
Okay, great. Like, I just noticed that there's just a lot of splooshes all over this cover.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. Yeah, I mean, so I like that's the other thing about the cover, right? There's a lot of symbolism, and all of it is meaningful. Okay, so just really, really quick gripe. I want to buy this hardcover book, and I saw a really pretty cover of them, but like none of the ones that are none of the purveyors that sell this hardcover like show an actual picture of the book. It's just like the JPEG of the front and back covers.
So I was looking at that too, because for our giveaway, I want it to be a hardcover, and I couldn't find a good picture of it.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna order one on Amazon and see what that looks like, and I'll tell you what happens. But like, there's this one that has like the painted edges with like the flowers, and it's really beautiful. But
you can't like actually see the.
I don't know if that's normal or if that's like a special edition. There's no way to know.
There's no way to know. We just gotta order it and find out, I guess.
I guess so.
Report back, because I was starting to question if it was like a self-published book, because usually those are only paperback. But then now that you've called out C.N. Crawford and that we've read her before, like it's not self-published.
It's not. Yeah.
Professionally published.
I'm a professional. I've been here before.
I'm a professional. Okay. And self-publication is fine, but
not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, I just want to make that very clear if this doesn't get cut out of the episode.
Anyway,
no complaints. So let's get into it. Katie, kick us off.
All right. So we are going to be splitting this book into 3 parts. So this is part 1 of 3. We'll cover chapters 1 through 15, and then we'll do our ratings at the end of episode 3. So come along with us on this journey.
Come along to Camelot.
This book is on Kindle Unlimited, which is great because that I want to make Amazon lose as much money on my subscription as possible. So
thanks, Daddy Bezos.
Thanks, Daddy.
Okay, real quick. I was in class the other day and I was referencing. Someone brought up Joanne Fabrics going out of business, and I was like, it's because of Amazon. I was like, it's because of, and I couldn't think of his first name. All I could think was Daddy Bezos, and I was like,
just say it.
I can't. I did. I was like, what's his first name? Someone was like, oh, it's Jeff, and I was like, so my friend and I just call him Daddy Bezos, and that's why I broke for a second.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm of two minds. Sometimes I really want to know what other people think about me, and most of the time I super don't.
Yes, very that. I think some of the students enjoyed it. I think others were like, what the fuck did you just say to me?
And to them I say, grow a sense of humor.
We were also talking about puberties. They were already all uncomfy. It was fine.
Oh my God.
As per my curriculum. We weren't just like talking about puberty. To be clear.
Totally. Yeah. No, I didn't even question the like level of appropriateness for that conversation in your class. I was just like, yeah, that tracks.
Okay. Listen, I just wanted to confirm. We digress.
We digress. Anyway, so there's no preamble here with silly things like maps or glossaries. We just like get right into the prologue, and I don't mind it for reasons that will become obvious, but like we don't really need a glossary, and it's happening in a world that most of us know.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we didn't get a map of the school, because I will say later, I've only read part 1, but it does remind me of Gothicana, but like as if these authors had read Gothicana and was like, we could do that better, and then did it better.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I say that to mean I'm glad we don't get a campus map, because I think it would have been not awesome.
I don't need it. Yeah, and so like the other thing about most campus maps, or a campus map would be very ineffective here, because like this is taking place in a school, right? So it's like it would be as effective as if you had a map of like Harry Potter's world, where like most of it happens inside the castle, and if you don't have a map of the whole castle like the Marauders map, like who gives a shit?
Exactly. I don't need it. If you're a good enough author, you could just explain it to me. We're not in the grander world where I might need to know like, oh, we're traveling for 5 days, where are we going?
Right, exactly. So it's not giving anything away to say that this the majority of the story takes place in what is modern day Europe, specifically France and England. But there are some nuances there that will become apparent very soon. But that's another reason why we don't need a map, right? Because, like, girl, you could look up France and England and you would know where we are.
And you could figure that out.
Right. So in this prologue, we follow somebody named Alex as she waits for her clandestine partner, Agent Rain, to show up for their mission. They're in the south of France, as I mentioned, and are a part of the human side of a war with the Fae. Apparently, the Fae burst through the Veil out of nowhere about 15 years ago, and when they did, all human technology ceased to exist and to work. Or I guess they didn't cease to exist. It's just like cell phones and shit don't work anymore.
Yeah, they didn't like phase out of existence.
That would have been wild.
They just like, I just like, pixelatedly like, boop, 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 boop.
That would have been proof that we live in a simulation. And so with that kind of negating of any technology whatsoever, the Fae easily took over most of France before they were stopped. And when they were stopped, it was because humans started using things like cannons and like guns that don't have computers in them and things like that. And that enabled them to force a tentative ceasefire, which they've been in since that time. So 15 years ago, I think the war lasted for like maybe a year.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it lasted very long. I mean, it was within our protagonist's lifetime. Like, she remembers having cell phones.
Correct. So this is where Alex and Agent Rain come in. They gather intel, as do other spies, for the humans who are trying to gain the upper hand against their fairy foes. So they don't want this to get any worse. They want the ceasefire to continue. Ideally, they want the Fae to disappear entirely. As Alex waits for her partner, she sees a pretty tourist with raven hair flirting with a waiter and is envious that this tourist gets to entertain the possibility of love. Alex, on the other hand, is a spy, and though she has feelings for Agent Rain, she knows she can never act on them because love, we learn, is a distraction in the field.
Of course.
Of course it is. Pretty soon, though, Alex concludes that something must be very wrong because Agent Rain is a no-show. Not only is he usually early, he is now positively late. So she decides to leave the cafe where she waits and continues to the secondary meeting point for the mission. As she does, we learn about the Veil. This veil is a magical barrier between two worlds that oozes so much magic that Alex can actually hear it humming. She describes it as, quote, a hungry thing, and if it consumes you, you die.
Ugh.
Blah.
It sounds terrifying. We learned more about what happens when you cross the veil, and it's not pleasant.
Yeah, the humming in particular, for me, was very evocative of, like, almost like a sci-fi kind of thing, like laser barriers and stuff. I really liked that imagery.
Yeah, I that's the vibe I got from it too.
So as we learn about the Veil, we learn that Alex is one of the only people in the world that we know of who can control it, and we'll get more on that later. But when she gets to the meeting point, she still doesn't see Agent Rain. Instead, she is met by two Fae soldiers. And before she can react, because something's very wrong, one of them stabs her in the stomach, and we assume that she dies.
So in this part, it's not like fully confirmed that she dies. So we're 15 chapters in, or at least I am. I kept waiting for her to come back until a character is like, oh no, they did. I was like, oh. I thought we were going to get a multi-POV. JK?
I mean, so like, I don't know. Like, there's part of me that's still like, is she dead? Like, I don't know.
It's not confirmed.
Yeah. I mean, you get stabbed in the stomach. I don't know. But we also see other people getting stabbed in the stomach in this book, and they're fine. So, like, I don't know.
Well, and there's magic, right? Like, you can fix that.
Correct. Hand wavy. Fix it.
It's fine.
But there's a couple of things about this prologue, and one of them is, like, first and foremost, I love a prologue where the person we were following dies. Like, it's such an instant hook for me.
Yes. We rarely get that. Usually it's, like, back in time or shit that doesn't matter for another 9,000 pages.
Dude, okay, that's another reason why I love this prologue, because it's immediately relevant. Like, we go from following Alex, we learn that she dies, and then we start chapter 1 traveling back in time 7 minutes, and we go with the raven-haired tourist. Like, immediately relevant shit.
And it was so clever to, like, connect what Alex sees, that tourist, and now that's actually our main character. Like, that was so cleverly done.
Yeah. And it gets past the thing that I usually have a pet peeve about, which is like, we're following this character and we have no idea what they look like or even what their name is for like the first 3 chapters. We immediately know a lot about our main character.
Okay, so that's one of my complaints that I'm going to say it now, but I'll probably say it later. She is just so very small, and her love interest is just so very tall. And I'm just like, but at least no one has purple eyes.
And
well, one person does, but they don't matter.
So I'm with you, but I'm also like, she's small. I think she's just average, like human size for a woman. And like, she's very average for a human, which I also appreciate.
I do appreciate that. And I think I clocked it because like it comes up a couple times and like we haven't met this character yet, but at some point like she's got to get new clothes and like the costumer is like, I don't know if I have clothes for someone as short as you. And I was like, what? She's not like a midget. Like, she's just a girl. And I've been listening to a lot of True Crime Obsessed, and Jillian references a lot just like my very weak small woman arms, and that's just all I can think about. She's
Me with
just
my
so
glass
very
bones
tiny.
and my smooth brain.
Yes, and my bird bones. Just like, I think she's fine, guys.
I think it's fine. Just, can you stop? Like,
Where he has to
Stop
like duck
necking
through
her.
doorways, and I'm like, okay.
that's also inconvenient, my guy.
Just make them both like 5'9". I don't understand.
Okay, we have to move on. But there's
I'm
one
sorry.
other thing about the prologue that I want to call out, and that's because it's the concept that I'm just gonna take that from the top.
What's more?
So we have to move on. But there's one other thing I want to call out about this prologue that was really well done, and that's that we get so much information about the world without feeling like we're in class. And I just thank you so much.
Yes, I know where we are. I know why we're here. And the prologue was maybe 7 pages.
Yeah, short, sweet, to the point, no notes.
I love it.
Again, such a departure from the years of prologue that was in Anathema. It's fine.
Yes. Yes.
So we start chapter 1, and we learn that this tourist's name is Nia. It's the same one that Alex was observing, and we learn that she's an American on vacation. Nia tells us that ever since King Oberon led his Fae invasion years ago, everything has been super duper expensive. So she's saved for years to make this dream 2-week trip to France a reality. And when we meet her, she's celebrating her birthday alone in that cafe with lavender cake. Well, she ordered lavender cake, but the waiter brings her blackberry cake.
I think we've read a lot of... Okay, let me rephrase that. We've read a lot of books that I immediately was like, there's something wrong with this cake. There's not. But it just seemed it was just a mistake. But I was like, this guy is sus. This cake is sus. Don't eat the cake.
I also had that thought, especially because the waiter like lingers. I had the same vibe as like the cake from Onyx Flamma or whatever, Onyx Storm. Like, the cake is definitely poison. Don't eat the cake.
Exactly.
So even though it's the wrong cake, she tries not to be disappointed because the slice costs like 4 hours of work for her back in her real life in Los Angeles. So she's like, thanks. It's delicious.
I guess I'll eat this cake that I otherwise don't want on my birthday that I'm celebrating by myself.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is like, I think lavender cake is abhorrent. And so I would be much happier.
We started this, well, not this episode, but you don't like floral flavors.
I don't like floral flavors. It is not my jam. I do not want soap in my mouth. Thank you.
I do like floral flavors.
I love that for you. I will make you a lavender cake any day you want. I will not eat it.
That's fair. Lavender and lemon, they go very well together. Like a nice lemon glaze.
Excuse me. Just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Just floor cleaner.
Lemon pledge. No, I love lemon desserts actually, but the lavender makes it pledgy for me.
That's fair.
Anyway, Nia flirts with the waiter and asks if he's seen any fae being this close to the veil. She admires the veil and its unmistakable presence, the hum, the iridescent shimmer, the threat of unpredictable danger. We learn that the veil kind of has a mind of its own. It's always mostly in the same place, but it's like a piece of fabric in that it moves, right? When the wind blows or whatever. And so it kind of shifts sometimes.
So if you're too close, it can be very dangerous.
Might get you.
Yeah.
So the waiter tells Nia unconvincingly that there's no longer a threat from the Fae, but Nia suspects that that's not quite right. She's heard of a secret force that battles a silent war with Fae, and that's the only thing keeping King Oberon's continued conquest at bay. We learned that before the invasion, Nia used to come to France as a child with her mother. Unfortunately, those weren't completely rose-tinted memories because her mother is a drunk and also has a problem with drug reliance. And she made those trips in search of rich husbands for herself and her young daughter. Gross.
She's a real piece of work.
Yeah. During one of those trips, Nia recalls being heartbroken by a half-fae aristocrat who shunned her after seeing her mother's appalling behavior. The waiter offers to meet Nia later, kind of like a nudge, nudge, wink, wink, you're cute kind of thing.
I'm off in an hour.
But then the conversation turns to about this concept of how Oberon has a bounty on anyone suspected of not supporting him, especially demi-fae. And the area around the Veil is kind of seen as like an in-between zone. Like those bounties could pertain to people on the human side of the Veil if they're that close.
Mm-hmm.
Nia gets the feeling during this conversation that the waiter might suspect her of being something that she's not and might try to turn her in for a reward. So she excuses herself to use the cafe phone and call her mother as an out.
I did make the prediction right here that she herself is demi-fae.
Oh, really? What made you make that prediction?
Because the waiter makes a comment of like, demi-fae are just so beautiful, kind of like you. And she gets very nervous and anxious. And like, so I actually made the prediction that she was demi-fae and knew it.
Oh, interesting.
Because she gets like really skittish about it. And I was like, Are you? And she kind of references her friend, like warning her about going to France and like going here. So I just thought she knew a lot more than, turns out she knows nothing, but I thought she knew a lot more.
I didn't make that. Like I knew when I was told kind of thing.
It's nice to be on the other side of that sometimes.
Doesn't it feel good? You feel like you can tell the future.
It does feel like I can tell the future.
Yeah, no, I just thought she was being awkward because she's like got really bad luck with boys and was like I thought he was being overly like flirtatious and like flattering, and I thought she was awkward.
Which is, I mean, she is.
And also super relatable.
Yeah, she's a very relatable character. She's just so very small.
And yeah, so very weak and small. I mean, I'm surprised she didn't get stepped on in this first couple
I know. Just a little
pages.
Thumbelina up in here. I'm sorry, I'll let it go. No,
you gotta at least bring it up during the wardrobe scene.
Oh, I will.
So she talks to her mom, and like it's very clear that her mom is a mess who just uses the conversation as an excuse to guilt trip Nia for leaving her mother at all. But while on the phone, Nia sees a woman across the street drop something. And so being a good Samaritan, she hangs up and goes to assist.
Just hangs up on her mom mid-sentence.
I mean, but that conversation wasn't going anywhere.
No, it was horrible. I would have hung up far earlier.
So when she does, she realizes that the woman who dropped the thing and the group of people with her are Fae fugitives who somehow have crossed the Veil and now are very lost. And now this is Nia's problem. Because if she makes a scene, these people will die. But if she doesn't make a scene, she's now like involved herself and she's got to fix this situation.
Yeah, she cares a lot. She's a very relatable character, and I think her fatal flaws are also really relatable. Like
people pleasing.
Yeah. Like people pleasing, which
I mean, this is good people pleasing. You don't want people to die. I get it, but
yeah, but it comes up later in a few ways too. And I'm just like, because like she doesn't have to get involved, and a lot of people would be like, not my problem.
Yeah,
but
I'm out.
But she's
great.
I
think I pull out a line later that talks about her people pleasing tendencies. So Nia decides to pretend to be a tour guide and lead these people to safety. One of the women tells her that they were supposed to meet two people who didn't show up, and we can intuit that this is Agent Reed and Alex from the prologue. And they were supposed to follow these people to the docks and somehow get on a boat and get to safety. So they walk through the seaside town, and as they do, they see two dragons whom Nia assumes must be on patrol for specifically this group. Not great.
Not awesome.
They avoid soldiers and odd looks as well during their journey, but Everyone is not a cool cucumber in this group. One of the women breaks apart, and when Nia follows her, she witnesses this woman's murder at the hands of Fae soldiers. No trial, no questions. She's just cut down in the streets.
She describes it as being just very casual, which is terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole vibe of this, the author does a really good job of making the vibe shift from like, oh, this is a sunny seaside French town. I'm on vacation. This is fun, to like, oh, Jesus, this is a war zone.
It's actually pretty dark in here.
Yeah. At one point, the group is cornered against the veil between two patrolling soldier groups, and Nia ends up hiding the people and herself in the veil. Somehow, it doesn't kill them, and they're able to continue to the docks safely.
I do want to say it's kind of like long and meandering. Is there like as she's leading them to the docks and pretending to be a tour guide? And I thought the tour guide thing was a really clever way to info dump without info dumping. Like we get a lot of information about the war and the history, but like action is still happening. And I was like, this is a really smart way to give this.
Yeah, and it teaches us a lot about Nia herself, because we learn that Nia has asthma and like she has an inhaler, and it's one of the ways that she's just a weak human woman, very small, very frail. But it was a good way to illustrate that.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
It's also a good way to illustrate the fact that Nia knows a lot of different languages, so she's able to like talk to these people in Fae and also in French and also in English. So they kind of like switch between those languages depending on how best they can communicate, because both sides don't have perfect information about how to fluently speak or communicate.
Yeah, and it does also illustrate just how intelligent she is. I mean, she works in a bookstore, but she knows all these languages. She knows all the history. She's a very intelligent, weak little girl.
Weak little human girl.
Cannot breathe.
Relatable.
It's so relatable. It's stress-induced asthma too, and one of the women she's helping says something like, when stress makes you like when you get stressed you get sick and you're still trying to help us. And I was like, I mean, that's a fair question.
Make this make sense.
Yeah, but she's still very grateful, and I was like, yeah. Nia's doing her best.
She's, as are we all out here. So at the docks, they find the ship that this group is supposed to board, but the crew refuses to take all of the fugitives because some of them are not on the list, including a little boy whose mother died during the trip. And Nia sees this as a great injustice. Compounding that, she recognizes the captain as that demi-fade noble who broke her heart all those years ago in France, Raphael Lancelot. Yeah, no, it's kind of on the nose. I get it.
Listen. It's very odd. And it's just the Renaissance medieval combo. Just name him anything else.
Tommy Lancelot.
Okay, maybe not anything else.
Timothy Lancelot.
Timothy Tuna. Lancelot the Third.
My name's Timmy Tuna.
I can't.
So Raphael is described as having, quote, eerie silver eyes, straight black eyebrows, and pointed ears that rise out of wavy dark hair. He also has tattoos that snake around his muscled forearms, because of course he does.
I have notes about his tattoos later when we see him shirtless.
They're not my favorite, and so I changed them.
Okay, good. Yeah, because... Yeah.
We'll get there when we get there. Anyway, so we learn that the crew of this boat are part of the resistance fighting that secret war against King Oberon's ambitions to conquer more of the human world. And they're on strict orders to only take fugitives on the list because these fugitives have been deemed successful or useful to the cause, I should say. Nia threatens to expose the group unless they take the extra fugitives, and Raphael's second in command, a woman named Vivian? Is it just Vivian?
I think it's just Vivian, but probably like Vivienne. I just called her Vivian.
Okay, Viv finds that despicable, like blackmail.
Well, it is blackmail.
It is, but it also works like blackmail, and they all board the ship and sail away from the town in immediate danger. Huzzah.
It works. Huzzah. And prithee.
Prithee. But the one quick hiccup, as they attempt to sail away, One of the guards tries to flag them down and they end up having to kill him and dump his body in the sea. So the whoopsie, they really got to go now. Everybody on the boat, we're getting the fuck out of here.
Just snaps his neck. It's fine. Okay, I was a little confused in this scene because when she enters the dock, she talks about a whole bunch of tourists, like groups of people, blah, blah, blah. But no one sees Raphael just like kill this guard and shove him into the ocean.
Well, I pictured it as like they're like the ship is blocking them.
Okay,
from,
that
like,
makes more
you know,
sense.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's weird that he came alone. Like, don't guards usually travel in twos?
Yeah.
It's fine.
And there were two, but it's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, they've committed murder, and so now they must flee. Soon after they're in the open water, Nia discovers that she's not good with the sea travel and is very ill during the voyage.
That was super relatable to me.
I also don't like, I mean, I'm fine on cruise ships, but like small boats in open, no, thank you.
No, I get very nauseous very quickly.
And because this is a zero technology boat, it's like literally a wooden like sailing ship. There's no computers or motorized motors at all.
No, not at all.
So she's trying to keep her cake down, and Raphael summons her to the captain's chambers. There, he reveals that he does remember her, and his tone reminds Nia of the way he called her trash to his friends all those years ago.
Well, and which was unfair because he only called her trash because her mom was just trash. But Nia didn't do anything. They just kissed.
Yeah.
Nia and Raphael, to be clear, not Nia and her mom.
Yeah, Nia, okay, that's weird. But I found that this backstory so relatable. Like, I don't know. I'm sure that even now there are people that if I ran into them, I would have a visceral reaction because of some shit they said to me when I was in high school.
For sure.
I also really like how this gets resolved. So stay tuned.
Okay. I don't know that part yet.
So Raphael asks Nia to report in detail how she got the fugitives to the dock. And during that tale, she tells him that they hid in the Vale. He seems shocked by this, so much so that he goes to confirm her story with the other fugitives.
He's like, if I ask them, they'll say that, right? And she's like, yes. Why would I lie?
Why would I make that up? That's such a weird thing to lie about.
Calm down.
And so I think one of the minor feedback is that there's a bit of back and forth here where like Nia's in the captain's chambers and then like she's alone, right? So she decides to go outside again so maybe the fresh air will set her stomach. And then like something happens and she goes back in the thing and then she goes back. There's like a lot of back and forth here. So just bear with me.
Yeah, it's a little clunky for a little bit here.
Yeah. So she's back on deck alone and she's like leaning over the side about to like retch, right? And she hears the voice of someone in her head screaming that they're all going to die. Nia is crestfallen because she was hoping that the voices she sometimes hears in her head were subsiding while on vacation. According to her doctors, no stress equals no voices. To which I say,
what a great
medication?
Doctor.
Question mark?
She even goes through this thing of like, I was never formally diagnosed because I don't have any other symptoms. Essentially I have schizophrenia. Like she references like I don't have disordered thinking, I don't have delusions, I just hear voices. And I'm like, that's enough.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
But she's not on medication, and I obviously if she was on medication that would not further the plot. So here we are.
Because the voices matter, right? I'm assuming they matter.
Oh, they super matter. Yeah.
Okay. Because at first this is where I started getting those parallels with Gothicana, because I was like, okay, it's a school. Okay, like there's kind of witchy people. There's like tarot cards and shit. Anja hears voices and her mom is crazy. But then when we add in the magic plot, I was like, the voices matter. Who she is matters.
Yeah, actually, now that you're like drawing those connections for me, it is Gothicana, but better because the voices super do matter. So we'll get to that, not in this part, but in part 2, we'll get to that. So she's hearing these voices, right? And she says out loud, quote, "Stop screaming in my skull." And of course, that's not a good look to the people around her who are also on deck.
No, because she looks crazy.
Yeah, you look crazy, girl. So
you look crazy, girl.
Sheepishly, she goes back to the captain's chambers to hide. She is soon joined by a woman with coppery skin and dark brown ringlets who introduces herself as Tana. Tana offers Nia tea to settle her stomach. We learn that she works for the Resistance as well because she can sometimes see the future. She does like card readings and tea leaves and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they refer to her as, what was it, like the TTCB, like tarot tea and crystal ball, and she's like, but I don't use crystal ball. She's like a more down-to-earth Luna Lovegood.
Yeah, definitely. She's a very cool lady.
I love her. She's great.
As they talk, though, Nia absolutely has to vomit, so she rushes back on deck to vomit. While on deck, Raphael joins them again and tells Nia that he believes her story because all of the other fugitives confirmed it. And he tells her, yeah, I guess so. Like, thanks for that vote of confidence. But he tells her that the reason that she was able to do that is because she's something called a sentinel, which is someone who control the veil with their magic. Which is odd because Nia thinks that she shouldn't have magic because she's fully human.
Well,
But she doesn't really have a choice whether or not to do anything about it because the organization Raphael and Viv work for, and Tana, is MI13, and they only have 2 sentinels and they badly need another. So Nia's convinced that she won't be able to meet that need because she's broken. She spirals in her internal monologue saying, quote, I can't handle stress, I hallucinate, I hear voices, I am fundamentally broken, end quote.
ugh,
You know,
this poor girl.
poor baby.
And for a hot second here, I was a little like, okay, you have asthma, you're just so very small, and you're kind of schizophrenic. I'm like, this girl, like, wait, just pick one thing. But I'm on board with all of them.
Yeah, and I want to say that I was concerned, but I don't think I ever actually was because she just comes off as very like introspective, like
Yeah.
very relatable in the way that she's like hyper aware of how people like perceive her all the time.
Mm-hmm. Which I appreciate.
And she doesn't like wallow in these feelings for like too long.
No, which was also nice. It wasn't, I was afraid it would become like just more of like a double down on the weakness, but it didn't
Right.
because she is such a strong character. So even her working through her asthma didn't bother me. It was a really good like description of like, hey, sometimes I struggle to walk and talk at the same time.
Yeah. I also, we'll get into this a little bit later in part 1. Like, I know we talk a lot about like training montages and how like everybody's got a fucking dagger these days. And like, she will get a dagger, but she's really bad at like self-defense.
Which
And
I
just really like
appreciated.
that.
Yeah,
Totally.
that she wasn't just like naturally good at it like all of our other heroines.
Yeah, like they full on train this girl for like 3 months and she's still like, no, nah,
I'm
I'm
not
gonna
good
lose
at
in a fight.
She's also, I mean, we'll get there when we get there, but I like when they call her out and like, you suck at this. She's like, I work in a bookstore.
Yeah. What do you want from me?
Right? Like, of course I suck at this. I've never held a dagger.
What do you think normal people grow up to do?
Right? Which I also just thought was very relatable.
Truly. So this discussion is interrupted by an attack by a sea monster, presumably
Because of
sent by King
course.
Oberon himself to catch those pesky fugitives.
Damn dirty fugitives.
Those damn dirty fugitives, yeah. And that's terrifying.
This thing is terrifying.
Yeah, it's like the Kraken. Like whatever thing that you see in your head for the Kraken, I assume it has tentacles, that's it.
That's what I pictured.
Yeah. And this fight is intense, and some nameless crewmate is eaten. Sorry, guy. But they finally do subdue the monster, and the ship can limp back to jolly old England, to Camelot. In this world, Camelot is the fabled place from King Arthur's time, but it's hidden by magic. It now houses a school to train magical ability in either humans who have descended from Arthur himself, or Fae and demi-Fae.
So I go into all of these books blind. So when we started talking about King Arthur and the Round Table and Lancelot and Camelot, I was like, what? Why are we here? Why is this what's happening? But I'm okay with it.
I gotta
think.
say, like, I've always found the King Arthur Knights of the Round Table, like, you know, kind of campy, and I think that has to do with what's the Monty Python and the Holy
Yeah,
Grail?
that's where I was
Yeah.
immediately gonna go. That's just
Right.
what I
so
picture.
like I think that's why I think it's
The whole
campy.
time.
But I will say the direction that it goes and the way that it ties it into like the broader world and the machinations is very well done.
Yes,
So I think that's just my own personal proclivities.
agreed. It doesn't detract from the story at all.
No. So this school is all in service of the resistance to further Fae invasions. Oberon is seen as an evil and ruthless king who must be stopped. And Raphael couches the school as a magic spy academy, hence the name of the series.
Fae Spy Academy,
It does what it says on the box.
which is, I like the lack of false advertising.
Yeah, look, creativity aside for the name, like it delivers. It does the thing really well. So Nia is reluctant for many reasons, but one of those reasons is that she doesn't want to spend any more time with Raphael. And he says that that feeling is mutual. Nia tells us internally, quote, "Usually I tell people what they want to hear, but Raphael brings out something completely different in me, and I'm not sure I can stop it," end quote. And this is where I think her people-pleasing tendency really comes out in a way that is relatable. Like, I wouldn't say that I tell people what they want to hear, but I'm definitely really good at mimicking, and that I think is a people-pleasing trait. And so I
Yes.
related to the way that she operates very, very well.
Yes, it's a really good character flaw and also strength. Like, it comes around later of like, hey, you could actually be a really good spy because of how good you are at telling people what they want to hear.
Right, exactly. So as they pull into the misty port of Camelot, Tana tells Nia that Camelot is a product of when Fae and humans used to live together peacefully, hence demi-Fae. This was all during the reign of the Pendragon kings, of which Arthur was the first. Camelot itself is described like a medieval town made up of Tudor-style houses and a big stone castle that houses the school itself.
It's very Arthurian. What you picture is what it is.
Yeah, it's very storybook. Like, I want to visit this place.
Me too.
When they dock, Viv takes Nia's passport and tears it up. She tells her that she'll be keeping a close eye on her, and if she ever makes a move to threaten MI-13 again, Viv will kill her personally.
And just kind of expects her to die anyway.
Yeah, I think she wants her to die.
Yeah, she's like, you'll be dead in a few days. It's no big deal.
And then you'll be out of my hair.
Yeah, toodles.
So beyond this threat of overt violence, Nia bemoans how miserable her mother will be on her own, how much of a danger to herself and potentially others she'll become. And boy, if like having to parent a parent isn't relatable, I don't know what is.
I know. I'm curious to see how that comes around because her mom is such a big part of who she is. And this book, even though she's not an active character, like she's got to play a role.
Totally. So when they get to the school, we learn that Alex and Rain and their Fae contact Leah are all dead. And that's why the mission went to shit. We learn that Alex was one of the 2 remaining Sentinels, and so now MI-13 only has 1. Well, 1.5 because Nia's here.
Which is good, I guess.
But I think this is like, so even though somebody says like they're dead pretty explicitly, I'm just like, but are they? Like, I don't know why I think that.
Yeah, well, and there are 2 authors, and so I assumed we would get a multi-POV because in my head, when you have 2 authors, they're writing 2 different voices. So I was waiting for Alex to come back and even wondering, like, when is Alex going to come back? And then it's confirmed she's dead, and I'm like, that's when. She's
Cool.
not.
Cool. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm further than you, but I haven't finished this book. So I don't actually know the answer to that yet.
Cool.
So Nia is then cut loose from Raphael to get some food, and she finds Tana in the cafeteria where she gets more than a few weird looks. Tana is sitting with a woman named Sarana, who's described as being feral and lethal looking when she smiles, and she also has long copper hair and pale white skin. I dig that vibe.
Yeah. She sounds awesome.
Yeah. So as she's looking around, Nia is struck how regally everybody is dressed, and we quickly learn that this is a part of the training. Fae are apparently very fancy people, and spies in the early days didn't live and breathe Fae culture, and it got them killed. So now they've worked that into the training.
Which makes sense.
So their group is soon joined by a man named Tarquin, who is a direct descendant of Arthur, a Pendragon. He goes on to give a little history about his ancestors, how the evil Fey Queen Morgan, Oberon's ancestor, ordered the slaughter of Arthur in his court for seemingly no reason, and thus birthed the Avalon Tower Spy School to avenge his death. He goes on to say that the school students are ranked after a test in their first year and given a torque, basically a necklace denoting their rank, with gold being the highest and denoting a Knight of the Round Table. Tarquin is very clearly an elitist and feels that only Pendragons and others of pure blood and means should be knights. The process of testing and assigning rank is called the culling because half of the school will get kicked out as a part of that process.
Tarquin is immediately insufferable to me.
Totally. Yeah. Just like
the worst.
Just so I want to say self-fallatiating, but that's not the right term.
Maybe it is. Is it wrong?
Know.
I think it's right. I think you're right.
Thank you. I think self-aggrandizing maybe is a more.
I like self-fallatiating better.
Okay, yeah, we'll stick with that. We'll keep it in
because he's simultaneously like super condescending, but also like, I'll show you around, Nia. We can study in my bed, but also you're so much less than me. Like, okay.
Yeah, because like he asks Nia about herself, and then he's like appalled that she works in a bookstore for a living. Like, such a commoner move. Am I right?
Yeah, because he's even like, I've never had breakfast with someone who's worked at a shop. Like,
and I think she asked, have you ever been to a store?
He's like, no.
Okay.
He's the worst.
So, like we kind of alluded to, it's clear that despite him thinking that Nia is beneath him, he's like macking on her pretty hard.
He
and
wants her
to
beneath him.
Yeah, yes. In more than one way, I think.
Biblically.
Oh my God. And he wants her to be impressed. She's not. And so Serana tells him to buzz off because he's being a creep and Nia's not interested. And though Nia's grateful that Tarquin fucks off, she understands that this just made her another enemy at the school. And so she's like, fabulous. I love this for me.
A strong enemy because he is a Pendragon.
Right. When he leaves, Tana tells Nia that most Pendragons get gold out of precedence and not real talent, though. So even though he's an enemy, he might be kind of an inept one. TBD.
Good.
After they've eaten, they determine to get Nia some new Fae clothes because she's still in the dress that she was in, like, on her birthday dinner, and it's covered in blood and seawater now.
Well, because she has nothing. She has her purse.
Yeah. All of her shit is still back in her hotel.
Yeah, in France.
Yeah. So for these clothes, they go to the wardrober's office. On the way, they pass a painting of Mordred the Kingslayer. He is the actual one who killed Arthur, and he's Oberon's daddy. So this murder of Arthur is what led to the schism between humans and Fae. And the Fae at that point, I guess, fled into a magical realm and like closed the door behind them until they invaded very like tangibly the mortal realm 15 years ago. We learn about a prophecy that the House of Morgan will burn Camelot to the ground. So that's why Oberon and his son are particularly feared in the tower.
I made a prediction that may or may not be true, but that either Oberon or his son is Nia's dad.
I also thought that might be the case. I think it might be. So we learned pretty quickly that the prince is called the Dream Stalker or Walker or something like that. I think it's him because I think that's why. Oh, you haven't gotten there yet. Anyway, I think that's her daddy.
All right, cool. So we're in line with the prediction there. Well, okay, I do have to say, so Nia comes to the fact that her dad is not her real dad. Like, she doesn't have a lot of problems with that. She's like, well, my mom and dad cheated on each other all the time, so I really just want to ask my mom who she fucked and what Fae she fucked.
I mean, it's very much like her mom had a lot of like a revolving door of men in her life. So like, I wasn't surprised that Nia removed herself from that idea pretty quickly. She's just like, well, that's weird. I'm more upset about what it means for me than that guy.
Yeah, because it sounds like she also hasn't really had any relationship with his name's like Martin or something.
Right.
With who her like dad figure was. So like she doesn't care. They don't like live together.
I thought it was funny too. I'm not sure if this is right, but he has some profession that feels the same as saying I'm an accountant.
Yes, it's something like that.
I'm an accountant. I do things that accountants do.
I go to a building and do business in my business suit.
Yes. I'm definitely not 3 little boys in a trench coat. Don't ask questions.
Nope. Don't ask questions.
I also thought this was a very good way to show us information, because we have literally said in critiques of other books, like, introduce me to the world by passing by a picture of somebody that we need to know about. And here, we do that.
It's great.
It's great.
There's so many parallels in this book to other books where I just feel like the authors read those other books and was like, I could do that better.
Listen to our feedback podcast and then wrote this book.
Yeah, and then executed it, and I'm here for it.
Me too. It's super effective.
It's super
like a Pokemon attack. Yeah. So we also learned that spies in the academy used to go through a 1 or 2 year like training process before the culling, but now that they are in this war, they've truncated it because they need like more people, and people are dying. Nia is aghast and wonders how she'll be away from her mother and her real life for that long. She's like focused on how the fuck do I get out of here? She doesn't realize yet that she won't.
She will never get out of this.
So at the wardrober, they run into Raphael and a woman named Ginevra. Ginevra is a Pendragon and insufferable.
All of them seem to be. This is a trend.
It seems to be a familiar trait. Raphael is shirtless, and it feels like maybe the two of them were canoodling. But Ginevra quickly leaves, and Nia can't help but stare at Raphael's shirtless form, even though she tells herself that she hates him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's here that I think we get a little bit more information about Raphael's tattoos, and it's also here that we're introduced to the nickname that Raphael has for Nia, which is Little Pixie. I loved the nickname. I did not love the tattoos.
No, because the tattoos were just very cliche American traditional. So he's described as having like the nautical star and like an anchor and a pirate ship and swallows. And I'm just like, okay, that's just not. I mean, you do you, but it didn't fit who he. It's this very strong half fairy, like spy, and I'm like, and you just look like a tool now. Thank you.
Yeah, you have the same tattoos as the tools that I dated when I was 20.
Yeah. The nautical stars? Yeah, no.
Yeah, pass. Big pass. So in my brain, I changed them to literally anything else, and I
like
moved
vines
past it.
and shit.
Yeah, like swirls. I don't care. Do a Rizand. I don't really give a shit. Just I'm down for the tattoos. I'm not down for the American traditional vibe.
Agreed. And just say he has tattoos. I didn't need that description.
No. So Serana leaves Nia and Raphael alone, and it's clear that Nia is uncomfortable. It's so clear that Raphael asks her about it. He's like, "You good, fam?" And she tells him he just makes her uncomfortable because he's like a robot. He doesn't, show any emotion. He's like very unsettling. So he's like, okay.
Also,
and
put a shirt on.
put a fucking shirt on. I think he does put a shirt on at some point. Point of clarification.
It's distracting.
It's not immediate though.
No.
So regardless, he helps Nia find some outfits, and she realizes that these are way skimpier than she realized. It's like a bunch of sheer panels and like skin, and like that's it.
That's all.
Yeah. Raphael tells her that her body language is all wrong when she's in one of these outfits, and that the Fae are much more confident, so he gives her some pointers. As he does so, she can't help but be drawn to him, and for a moment, she thinks she might see a different kind of heat in his expression as he watches her. But then he excuses himself rather abruptly and leaves, saying that she's used too much of his time already, and he has more pressing concerns.
Do we think he left because he had to go take care of himself?
Definitely.
Yep.
Definitely. So more than a little confused and still nursing her broken heart from all those years ago, Nia goes to find her room. She discovers that her roommates are Tana and Serana. Great. Although saying those two names together, Tana and Serana, are very, like, limericky.
It's a little rough together, but they're both great.
In her room, there's a portrait of Merlin, and Nia wonders aloud why he doesn't wear a gold torque. It seems kind of silvery. But we learn that his torque is actually made of Avalon steel, and it's only able to be fired by dragon's breath, and that actually is the highest rank at the Academy, not gold. But they don't talk about it because only Merlin, Arthur, and some other really powerful fae from back in Arthur's court times were granted them by the Lady of the Lake when the Lady of the Lake was still alive.
They are elite.
So the two of them help Nia write a letter home, explaining why she's not going to come back to her mom, while they tell her about themselves. We learn that Serana is from the Isle of Man, but Tana is fully from Brochlandi.
I read it as broccoli because I just saw the BROC and that was the end of my thought process on that word. It looks like broccoli with a D in it.
Yeah, it's broccoli with a D. I'm so sorry. It's probably some really beautiful French name, but
I'm sure it's a very beautiful French word.
It's the name for the Fey land on the other side of the veil. So, like, Tana's from
Brochlande.
Broccoli. D.
Broccoli.
Broccolande. So they ask Nia about her history with Raphael specifically, and Nia deflects, saying that there's nothing there. As she takes in her new surroundings, she's excited to finally share a bathroom with only 2 other people rather than a whole floor like she has to back home, and the hovel that she lives in with her mom.
What apartment building are they living in I know they exist and this is my privilege coming out, but like, is this a dorm? Do you live in a dorm? You share a bathroom with strangers? No.
Yeah, I had that same thought. I was horrified, and I'm so grateful that I've never had to know that.
Yes, same.
So the ladies are soon joined by a student named Darius, who is always hounding Tana for tarot card readings about his love life. Before he gets his reading, though, Tana reads for Nia. The cards she pulls for Nia are the Tower, the Lovers, the Emperor, the Moon, and Death. So lots to unpack there.
Again, this was another parallel I had with Gothicana, but I was so glad to see accurate use of tarot because she pulls the Tower first, which is like destruction and doom, and Tana has that reaction, and I was like, I'm so glad they used the right card because usually they just pull death and then act on it that way. And then when she actually pulls death, Nia's like, that just means like change, right? It's fine. And I was like,
yeah,
thank you for doing your research.
Exactly.
Crawford.
And I love that Nia's like, am I going to die? And Tana's like, yes, we all die.
We're all going to die.
Nobody gets out of this alive, girl.
And she's like, we all die. But Demi-Fae have longer lives than others. There's other problems here, though.
Right. Let's bring it back to the now.
Right. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, I really liked that too. And she doesn't go into like specifics about the moon or death, but she essentially says like the Tower means there's going to be a lot of change and upheaval. The Lovers mean that some love from your past is going to come back into your life. And then the Emperor is like, there's something about your parentage, specifically your father, that's intertwined with those things.
I think this is one I called that she was a descendant of Oberon.
Yeah, which makes sense and could definitely be why some of the other things happen. Anyway, we'll talk about that when you've read it.
Stay tuned.
So Nia seems to take this reading in stride, though, and she lies on her bed listening to Tana give a reading to Darius. As she falls asleep, she starts to hear a deep voice that she's heard since she was little. This voice is described as being deep and sensual, and it sometimes talks about violence, other times poetry, and other times sex. This time, it speaks about sex as Nia falls asleep.
Sounds great to me.
Yeah, cool. It's like listening to an audiobook, right?
Exactly.
The next day, Nia attends fighting class taught by Viv, and she's like comically bad about it, which we've talked about. I so appreciate.
Yes. Finally.
Never held a weapon in her life. Never thrown a punch. Very, very bad.
And is not just miraculously amazing or has some affinity to daggers like all of the other female characters we have.
Yeah, her with her bird bones are not good at this and won't be.
No, her very, very weak small arms.
So she gets paired with Tarquin to spar, and that's not great. He taunts her by calling into question her low birth, And then he tackles her and starts strangling her. As he does, she hears a voice in her head telling her that she should have been nice when she had the chance. Then Tarquin is bodily removed by Raphael. He warns the Pendragon that if he kills the only other sentinel that they have, that he will end his life. Viv reprimands Raphael for interfering with her class, but Raphael is like, handle your class better and I won't have to intervene. Deuces. I know that it's very cliche, but I just love when they show up out of nowhere for no reason and like have the touch her and die vibes.
It's the damsel in distress, touch her and die. It never gets old. We
No,
love it.
I know. It's great.
It just hits every time. It's just always good.
So after class, Viv tells Nia that they will train privately because even though Viv dislikes Nia on a personal level, she understands how valuable Nia is, and her current level of training, or lack thereof, will get them all killed. Cool. Nia's like, I'm so lucky.
Because we're going to train at 6 a.m. every day.
Pass. I'm not a morning person. So next, Nia attends language class, and we learn that she's rather good with languages. Not only does she know French, English, and Fey, she also knows Italian, Spanish, and some Arabic. We learn, though, that she's never been instructed in Fey pronunciation because she's only learned it from reading books, and she's very keen to get that edification. The professor is so impressed that he moves her to his advanced class.
Oh.
Teacher's pet. Wow.
Oh, I'm here for that book, too.
I know, right? But I also appreciated that she's like book smart and not like physical smart. Because like Violet in Iran Flamme, I love Violet, but it's also a little bit like she's trying to be two things. Like, you're really wicked smart, girl, but like you don't have to be good at fighting. It's fine.
Yeah, where she's both. She's like, I'm also so weak, but so very strong at fighting, and I know everything. So I like that. Nia is like, I know a lot of stuff, but like, please don't come at me too fast.
Right. Don't come at me at all, actually, please.
Not even a little bit. Thank you.
So sometime later, Nia is summoned to see Raphael. She's in her head about the names that Tarquin has come up for her, namely a public bus that everyone gets to ride.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Whoa. It's not from a sexual person. Well, it's not overtly sexual, but it's because she's a sentinel. And so she's like,
Just
the public
transporting
transportation. Yeah.
peeps. Yeah. He also like, I think at some point he aligns her with like a septic tank or something.
Yeah. He tries to make like Cockney slang, like a Cockney slang dig at her. And everybody's like, yeah, dude, that totally landed. Good one.
Stop trying to make fetch work, Karen.
So she believes that this, plus her abysmal performance in like physical combat, is going to get her kicked out, and that's what Raphael has summoned her to talk about. But he tells her instead that he will be her magic teacher. We learn that he has a box with an imitation of the veil inside, and he instructs her on how to access her magic to disable the barrier and grasp an object hidden within it. When she fails, the barrier burns her. Raphael then uses his healing magic on her, and it feels like desire, which makes Nia very uncomfortable.
Oh. Oh. I was here for this whole thing. She's like, I would rather be in pain.
I would rather die. I also love that she's like, is this how it feels for everybody? This is so weird.
Again, very relatable.
So relatable. Like, just the way that she overthinks is just, I feel seen.
I feel so seen and heard.
So during this, Raphael can tell that she's like pressed, and he like pushes her to talk about what's going on in her emotions. He tells her that she has to master her emotions to be able to be an effective spy. He brings up her mother, and Nia gets real defensive about that, knowing already what Raphael thinks of them both. Raphael seems to think that Nia needs to control her emotions in order to access her magic, but it's been clear from the beginning that Nia actually uses her emotions to access her magic and make it work. When she's successful at doing this and she disables the barrier in the box, afterwards she gets cold, and we learn that this is a common side effect of using magic, especially when you're not trained to use it or you use too much. And I really liked that like depiction of how you get when you're drained.
Yeah, and that's something we talk about whenever we have magic systems too in books. Like, tell me the rules and the limitations. What happens when you are drained, or is it infinite?
Right. What are the consequences here?
Yeah.
So she tries to use her powers again, but she gets distracted from her fear and anger, emotions that summon her magic. And she tells us, quote, "It stopped working the second I looked at him. My power worked through fear and anger, and when I looked at him, I felt something else. As much as I hate to admit it to myself, I wanted to impress him. Long ago, he dismissed me, and now I only want to prove him wrong." End quote.
I did like that. And it'll be interesting to see how her like emotional regulation plays a part in her using her powers.
Totally. I think it's handled really well from what I've read so far. And I think that the way that her magic evolves is really interesting. But I also really like this line because she's operating out of spite here. And I identify with that.
Yeah, she's such a relatable character.
I know. Truly.
I am not trash, and I will show you how much I am not trash.
Fuck you and the horse you ran in on.
Yes. Why is the horse running?
I guess he would be galloping. Road.
I liked ran.
A running horse seems like a very different thing than a galloping horse.
It does, which is why I had to call it out. I was like, what?
Anyway, problematic imagery aside, we next meet Ryther Pendragon. Ryther?
Ryther.
Yeah.
That's how I read it. I don't know how else it would be. Ryther. Richner.
Badly named Pendragon, which is fine because he's a dick. He's a knight of the round table, though. He's a professor.
They're all
and
dicks.
he's also an absolute menace to Nia. And his nephew is Tarquin.
Of course.
Of course.
Who was surprised?
In his class, we learned that the son of Oberon is called the Dream Stalker because he's able to do just that. It's a form of primal magic that is almost unheard of in this day and age. The primal magics in this world are aeromancy, which is converted into like weather magic, amoromancy, which is like the ability to make people fall in love, polymorphism, which is self-explanatory, mind control, also self-explanatory, and conjuration, also self-explanatory.
Also self-explanatory.
So dream stalking is a form of mind control.
Spooky.
So we go on to learn that there's a train in the Fey realm that transports human goods from the human-controlled parts of France to the Fey-controlled parts of France. And it's also a convenient way to get around in this Fey realm. It's also part of the current ceasefire agreement. So it's like one of the only things that goes in and out of the Vale regularly. Before we learn anything else, though, class is interrupted by Raphael, who summons Nia for a mission.
Le mission.
Le mission. So later that night, Nia goes on this mission with Raphael and two other agents named Arzel and Freya. They all travel on horseback into the countryside near the Vale. They are responding to an urgent need to get intel on a pending invasion of France, but they need to meet this contact in a town on the other side of the Vale. So the plan is for Nia to get them all through the Vale, and then for three of them to travel to the town while Nia waits by the Vale for them to return, because Nia is so untrained. I can't tell you how untrained she is.
She cannot be taken further in there. She will risk the whole mission.
0 combat, 0 chill, can't do it.
I had a couple questions about the Vale here, because I kind of pictured it as just like a wall, like in France. So the fact that there's like also a Vale in the English countryside, I was like, what does this, like, do they end? I mean, like, obviously it must end, so they're just like panes of Vale. I just had questions on the logistics of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can think about it like they invaded a spot in France, right? So there's like, it's like a moat almost around their territory. And so I think some of it's like in the English Channel, some of it's like on the northern side of France, and then obviously the southern part of France where we started the book. But I think it's like kind of all over the place.
That makes sense. That's clearer to me.
So when it's showtime, Nia accesses her rage. She does it this way. She says, quote, "I'm always the one who picks up the pieces. I take care of things when everyone falls apart around me. I live in the shadows, trying to make things go smoothly. And who comes to help me in the night when I'm sick and can't breathe? When I'm calling for help and there's no answer?"
That's rage-inducing.
Yeah. Rage. White blinding rage. And this blinding rage lets her magic flow and disarms the veil. So once they get to the other side, their cover is that they are a hunting party. But before they can split up and enact the plan, they encounter a Fae patrol. They use the cover story, and it works well until one of the officers takes an interest in Nia, biblically. But they shake him off by saying that she's simple and she needs to be protected. Like,
She's just so small and dumb.
and also very, very dumb. Yes.
You don't
Nothing
want this.
but a peanut butter swirl up in that brain.
These aren't the breasts you're looking for.
These aren't the breasts you're looking for. The patrol's like, I think they are.
I sure think they would be.
I sure do. I sure do want those breasts. So the patrol rides off and the plan is put into action. But when Nia is alone, she encounters the patrol again some hours later. That officer still wants to have sex with Nia, and Nia hears a voice in her head that couches her in this innocent light. She realizes that in order to get away, she needs to be the opposite of what that man wants, so she pretends to be very experienced with sex and not picky about her partners. This prompts a reaction of the voice in her head to talk about a whore that it killed and how that bloodbath is going to be nothing compared to what's going to happen tonight if the plan goes all according to plan. So many
Whoa.
plans. Wow.
So many plans. You got there.
I got there. Thank you. Thank you very much. I landed that plane so smooth.
Just like my peanut butter brain.
Oh my God. Yeah. Mine is turning more and more into peanut butter the closer I get to my gin cocktail. So here we go.
We're so close.
So close. As Nia rides away from the patrol, she puts the pieces together that the voices in her head somehow tell her the truth about the future and that Raphael and the others are headed into a trap, that bloodbath that voice was talking about. She determines to get to them and warn them, and the only way to do that is to catch a ride on the train of Gabanos, that train I was talking about. And luckily, there is a station not far from where she is, and the next train leaves at midnight.
This is a terrible idea.
This is such a terrible idea, but I loved every minute of it.
Oh yeah, no, I'm here for everything that happens. It's just like, no, don't go outside.
Don't go outside. I mean, you're already outside. Don't go further outside.
Don't go in the basement. That's really where my brain was going.
Yeah.
Horror movie vibes.
So she's on a horse, right? And she rides her horse alongside this train just as it's moving away from the station. So the train's not going at full speed, which is how the horse is keeping up with the train. And after a couple of unsuccessful tries, she does finally grab onto the train and board it. And thus, she is on her way into the heart of Fae-occupied France.
What is she gonna do when she gets there? I obviously haven't read past this part, but I am concerned.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much ballsiness happening here. And then she's like, oh, I have to get inside the train. I'm like, do
Why?
you? You could just ride on top of the train. I don't understand why you have to get it. It's fine. We'll talk about it in part 2 because this is where we're going to end part 1.
No. Okay. I mean, that's where I stopped reading, so of course that's where we'd have to end. I just want to know what happens.
It's fun. I mean, like this whole train heist thing, I'm having a good time, but I'm also sitting here like, this is a terrible idea. This is such a terrible idea. You have bird bones and glass fingers. Like you can't, this is not a good idea.
No, and even once you get to the people you're trying to help, like you have no skills. So like, what is your plan? You have thought 0 steps ahead.
Yeah. And maybe it is helpful to say that like she's not going totally out on a limb here because the voice in her head said the name of the town where her compatriots were going to. So like
That's true.
she does know where she's going and she will eventually like bump into these people, but I had questions about like how big is this town? Are you going to find these people like in time?
Pretty ballsy.
It's handled well. It's pretty ballsy, but it's handled well.
Okay, good. I'm here
Yeah.
for it. I mean, I'm here for this whole journey.
You and me both. Totally. All right, friends. That is part 1. Those are our thoughts on part 1. Join us in 2 weeks for our thoughts on part 2. And then 2 weeks after that, we'll do part 3 on our ratings. I know it feels like forever, but it's worth it. This book is really good. So let us know what you thought on the socials. You can find us on TikTok and Goodreads at Spice Traders Pod. And you can also find us on Patreon if you really like our content and would like more. We do release episodes on our Patreon every other week. So check us out. And if you really, really like us, drop us a review wherever you listen. But until next time, we'll see ya. Bye.
Bye.